Yes! There we go. Hello and welcome everyone to 40k Frontiers with Showcase. With us today, we've got the beautiful people from Northern Ireland, rocking that beautiful orangey red beard as well. We've got Paul. How you doing, buddy?
How's it going, guys?
Better now you're here. And the man, the myth, the legend himself, the king of the North, Mike McConkey. How you doing, buddy?
Very well.
And as well, we got Towse. I mean, we always have Towse. So, as you may have alluded to, we got the two Northern Ireland WTC representatives from previous year, and then also like two big influences of the Northern Ireland community. So, before we get stuck into the questions, I guess we're going to start. So, Paul, how did you get into 40k, and how long have you been playing for?
Yeah, I got into it as a kid, much like a lot of hobbyists. So around 11, 12, I think I picked up a white dwarf in one of the local stores, and that was me hooked from that point. Didn't realize the path it was going to take me down, but so got involved, and then again, like most, around 17, 18, fell away from the hobby, discovered alcohol and ladies, and then got back in about 2016, 2017, and that's where Bastion Games sort of came about. So yeah, back in it for the last 7 years now, and going strong.
Yeah,
so
nice.
8th and 9th sort of thing.
Crossover. I think it was just 8th, had just about dropped thereabouts.
Yeah,
and the game has obviously changed a lot from, I think it was 3rd edition when I fell off the scene.
The classic paint by numbers, fill in the blanks. Hi, my name is blank. I saw a choose out of Games Workshop store white dwarf friend parent.
It's almost like their marketing works, so that their marketing tactic works.
Yeah, but also and then that fell off at age, discovered girls and or drinking and or uni money, right? And then it fell back in it. How about you, Mike? Can you fill in the blanks of your thing? Does the same template apply to you?
It's exactly the same template, to be honest. Yeah, I started back in 2nd edition when I was about 7, 8 years old. Started with Ultramarines with the yellow trim on the shoulder pads, because that's what second company.
And the really thick slopped on yellow trim. It was a goblin green base room with grass block. Oh yeah, powerful. Red bolters?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Bolters didn't come in any other color but red. And the bigger your helmet or the bigger your hat was the more important the model. That's how it all worked. Yeah. So I collected, I suppose, yes, with my friends and I, who were all 7, 8 years old, probably tried playing the game and got it totally wrong. Because it was a lot more complex back then when you had jamming assault cannons and things like that. So played 2nd, 3rd edition. I played a fair bit. Dropped away when I was probably 13, 14 for quite a few years. Missed pretty much all of 4th edition.
So Paul was a late start on the drinking for Irish things, right? If you dropped off at 13, 14.
I know, Paul, catch up, lad. So I sort of kept in touch with 40k. We got White Dwarf every single month. There was no internet usage at that point really for 40k. It was all pretty much you got it from White Dwarf or by going into Games Workshop itself. 5th edition, I just started. I got my Eldar out of the attic and decided to go do a tournament. Got my ass handed to me 3 games in a row in a tournament. I think I turned up and played 3 Irish ETC players in a row without knowing anything about it. So, just absolutely got hooked. Then just getting smashed. I was just like, this is amazing. This is a different level of 40k. This is what I want to do. So, played 5th edition. I'm trying to remember. My first ETC was 2013. I think was Serbia. It might have been 6th edition. I can't quite remember. And pretty much I've just been playing solidly since then, and probably being involved in Team Northern Ireland, and I was captain 1 year, vice captain another year. That sort of stuff has kept me in the hobby as much as anything, and I'm just obsessed with it otherwise.
Yeah, it's good.
As we all are, and as well as obviously multiple times sounds like ETC representative. You won this past was a Northern Ireland event. So tell us about that, Mike. So you came first overall. So and what was the event? And I know it was a significant event in Northern Ireland itself.
Yeah, it's probably one of the biggest events we've had. Trying to remember what Paul. It was Paul's event, which is so. I'll not talk too much about that, but I know you ran the same one last year. Paul, a similar sort of size, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was actually the year before because of COVID.
Yes.
Sort of threw the second one off. So it was, yeah, this is now the second Warlords event, Bastion Game Warlords. So we had 40 registered players, and then it ended up 37, I think, plus the Buybuster played across the weekend. A few dropouts on the Sunday, as is to be expected. But yeah, it was great. It's great to get it's kind of, we're very, very limited with venues in Northern Ireland. You typically have to go to a hotel because we don't have great venue spaces, or we had a really good students' union at the Queen's University, which is now closed, which would have been ideal, but it's very, very tricky finding the space for the number of tables we need, and obviously for the players. So yeah, that's one of the big sort of limitations, but we're trying to get things now up and running again after COVID. Finally.
I think to be fair, I mean, I remember back in 5th, 6th edition, we would have maybe had like 50 player tournaments, but a lot of that field would have been guys coming up from the Republic. So you would have had like the whole Republic ETC team would have came up, and a lot of other guys. This is probably like the biggest only Northern Irish sort of tournament that we've had. I don't think we really had anyone. I mean, they were all Northern Irish based gamers.
Was
to get
Carl
40
interloping in there?
Say
Poking
that
his
again,
nose in? Oh, Carl, who roped us in for the interview, right? Was he interloping, or did he just like? Was he at the event?
Oh yeah, he was at the event. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of. Anyway, I've like fully sidetracked things. I'm sorry. Mike, you did.
Carl's the Northern Ireland team captain, so as opposed to
Yeah,
the
but
Republic.
isn't he from the Republic originally?
No.
He just looks like he is.
Okay, he's told me something that's misled me. That's made me look like an idiot. I'll blame him while he can't defend himself.
Absolutely.
Alex, it's a very politically sensitive subject.
Yeah.
So because Northern Ireland as a country is like, debated quite a bit as its status as a country. At least within the 40k international scene, Northern Ireland is separate from the Republic of Ireland. Keep it simple like that.
Yeah. I remember seeing on at least one Discord, like someone from the States being a bit confused, being like, so Ireland can send 2 teams. It's like, yeah, they're 2 different countries, bro.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, so I was trying to compare. So for people who don't know, I alluded to this, so Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland are 2 separate countries. They're not like a north and south of the USA or east and west of the USA. They are completely 2 separate countries. Just for
They are.
like Macedonia and North Macedonia, they are 2 separate countries, right?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure. Yes. Yeah. I just want to make sure with that example. So is it almost the events that
We don't have a wall though.
Yeah, no wall.
Yeah, well, yes. So are most of your events held in, like around the capital city of Belfast in Northern Ireland, or they're held in like other areas, or?
No, probably most of our events are in Bangor, which is, I mean, like Bangor's 10 miles outside Belfast, so it probably still doesn't count. We have a gaming club there, Exploding Dice, and Pete and the guys there put on, like, I think it's every month pretty much, they're running an event of some sort. Plus they're also doing like Age of Sigmar, Lord of the Rings, Blood Bowl, like they're constantly cycling through various games. So I believe he has at least a tournament every 6 weeks for 40k down there, and that would be probably the most regular. And like Northern Ireland's not a big place, which is why like Game of Thrones and film studios come to us, because you can literally like film in Belfast and within 40 minutes be filming in the middle of the Mourne Mountains, and then like film beside a beach, 20 minutes later. It's a small place. Like Paul and I are probably sitting about 3 miles away from each other at the minute. Yeah. So it's not big. So yeah, it's handy enough. He's running it regularly, and like guys from across Northern Ireland are going to it because it's probably at most about an hour 45's drive for even the furthest guy away from Bangor. So because it's right over on the east coast.
You can relate
so.
to the film industry side of thing there within New Zealand. Be like, yeah, there's like, we can go year 10 school camp. We abseiled into Narnia. That sort of thing. Yeah.
So you mentioned it there, and also you named Paul at Bastion Games. So is that your company you own, or like a place you work for?
No, it's not. Actually, I run my own business completely separate from wargaming, but Bastion Games is really just, I suppose, a placeholder name just for the events. When I first got back into gaming after my hiatus, we were running Age of Sigmar events, and then drifted or quite organically into 40k. So it's not an actual physical store. It's not an actual business. It's just really an event header name. For
Glad you've moved to a better place though, better game system. Proud of you.
Absolutely. I'm gonna get daggers from some guys for that, but
it's fine. Direct them at me, dude.
AOS is fine. AOS is fine. We like it as well. I wish there was more time in the world we could play all the games, right? But it's sadly not. And 40k is the true love we've chosen, right? So fantastic. So you said there were roughly every 6 weeks there's an event, roughly Northern Ireland. Is it like an RTT or is it like a GT equivalent? And
normally it would be like an RTT, be like a 1-dayer. We do probably every third tournament. Would be like GT, like a 2-day format. Yeah, that's probably the way I would probably have, maybe including sort of what Paul's running. Maybe we'd have 4 or 5 2-day events up here, and then like listen, we're I mean, if I left the house now, I could be in Dublin in about an hour and a half, roughly. So obviously the guys down south run various events throughout the whole island of Ireland, and some of the guys definitely will be going down to them as well. So we're actually, I mean, compared to maybe 10 years ago, we're pretty blessed actually with the amount of tournaments we have going. Like a tournament used to be like a blue moon here, which I think attracted loads of people because everyone was, you could be going 3 months between a tournament, and so like everyone was just wanting to go and do this tournament. Whereas it's nice to see so many new guys coming into the scene, and it's really inflating the numbers and it's pushing all the tournaments. Like every tournament is sold out within about 24 hours. The minute it goes up, 24 hours later, you can't get a ticket. There's a tournament at the end of the month, Exploding Dice. I left it too long and didn't get a ticket because it was gone about 18 hours. They sold all 28 tickets done dusted. So, which is good. Like it's healthy for the scene. So,
yeah, it's really unfortunate though that you're limited in venue space, right? So you can't like keep it going. But yeah.
No, I think it's our biggest year. We've just recently done an event calendar for Exploding Dice, which is the club, Bastion Games, obviously ourselves. There's Underworld Gaming in Dublin, which is a relatively new club. Now it's a really, really big shop, fantastic venue. And then you've got the Broadsword Wargaming guys, again in the south of Ireland. So I think across all 4 venues this year, we have 21 events in total, of which 8 are 2-dayers. So I think that's the biggest event calendar that we've had, certainly in my involvement in the last 6 years, which is fantastic. Yeah, really, really good.
Yeah, and also on top of that as well, like obviously you guys are part of the British Isles and all that stuff, and like there's the UKTC and like all the events that are spreading across the UK. It's like it's hard to fit them all in and find a weekend which is actually free. So you talked about it before. So obviously some people from the Republic of Ireland travel up, and you guys travel down obviously to Dublin for Republic of Ireland events. Do you guys have like a pretty good relationship then in terms of like you deal well with the other side per se, and like playing games with them?
Yeah, well, the Mexicans, as we refer to them, because they're south of the border. Those guys, yeah. So they love that. There's one time I think a number of their team turned up in sombreros to a practice game and everything. So no, there's a very, 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 very healthy, friendly rivalry with the guys down south. Like we'll be talking most days, and we'll be talking to them. They're in our Discord, we're in their Discord. Yeah, it's all very healthy. Like so, it is.
That's good. It's really important, eh?
Yeah, massive.
Like you keep them in their place, we'll keep the Aussies in their place. It's good. Boston's muted and can't defend himself.
Yeah, they're up next month for a WTC scrim match. So we've got 2 games into them next month. So that'll be good. Something to look forward to.
Yeah. Normally we probably late May. We'll probably head. Well, I say I'm not on the team this year, but the team will then head down to Dublin for like a home and away style sort of scrim. And listen, WTC this year is all going to move to 10th edition, so it's all just about getting games in and seeing the guys, etc., etc. So
yeah. Allegedly moving to 10th edition, right? Allegedly.
I was there the year where ETC at the time didn't change editions, and as a team you end up like playing an old edition for 2 months, and it was just soul destroying because like you were going to a gaming club and everyone was playing the new edition, having great crack, great fun, and you were stuck in an old edition, and it was soul destroying. So I can understand why they want to do it. It's horrendous from a logistics and pulling an army together and training point of view, but hey-ho.
I feel like in some ways it can be relaxing though, right? Because it's like, whatever. You don't need to, like, to some extent it's not worth massively overanalyzing, worrying too much. It's just sort of like focus on building the team and getting better and stuff, right? So it's like, you can justify a bit more playing different armies because, like, oh, who knows what's going to be good, right? Like, yeah, I'm gonna focus on whatever army because it's good, and it's just like, oh, well, that's not happening with the new rules or whatever, right? Because yeah.
Yeah, especially if it's a hard reset too, which the rumors are. That just completely levels the playing field. Other than obviously the guys that have been playing it for the last year.
Unless you have a load of play testers in your team, England.
Yeah.
So you know.
Wink, nudge, right? Wink, nudge. So with that, so obviously this past weekend you had the Bastion Games Warlord 2.0. Did you guys play with the Arcs of Omen and all the new rules and all that jazz?
Yeah, we went Orcs of Omen. We again similar to what Mike touched on. We didn't want to have guys coming along for it's the end of our qualifying season event, so that the Team NI rankings shuts off after that event, and we didn't want to run it with the old rules just purely because, you know, even for that 2 or 3 weeks between Arcs of Omen release and the event, we wanted guys to be playing with the new rules. So we just thought, yeah, why not? Let's go with it. Let's roll it. Get guys to throw out their armies and have a bit of fun at the same time.
Yeah, fantastic.
Plus, in some ways, right? If you're planning on like qualifying people for 10th, right? It's a good tester of like, all right, everything's new, work it out, good luck, right? Which is what's going to need to happen for like LV. No, not LVO. That was in the past, and they didn't do this. But for WTC. The wrong 3-letter tournament acronym.
It made sense for LVO to stick to the old rules because, like, that's a huge investment, money and time, etc., for the organizers and for the players. Whereas, you know, as I say, the furthest the guy probably had to drive was about an hour up the road to get to Bastion Games, and everyone's in the same Facebook chats and stuff. So there was loads of list ideas being bounced about for a couple of weeks, and we're kind of helping each other a little bit and pointing each other in the right direction for what could be good in Arcs of Omen without knowing exactly. So
yeah, but you guys have run tournaments a bit differently to obviously like a normal traditional. This was a singles event, obviously, but you guys run events a bit differently. I understand you use the 20 system, so the WTC system, the WTC FAQ, and all that jazz. So, do you know why is that? Why do you guys do that? Is there like a big reason behind it? Maybe Mike or Paul, you can Mike touch on it. Why?
Yeah, 100's difficult for the Irish to count to. 20 is much more manageable.
Northern Irish, okay, come on, we can't
Northern
have
Irish.
No, they're Northern Irish. It's the Mexicans coming up that struggle.
Yes, that's it, most of them have 10 fingers and 10 toes, so it makes it easier for them. Not all of them.
Few of them have 12 fingers.
I think, to be fair, that's probably just a historical thing. You know, Team NI would have ran a lot of the tournaments previously, so it was easier to get the guys in the mindset of playing a game 20-0 and how that works. I personally, I prefer it to just straight win-loss. I know Americans have a real hard-on for win-loss in everything that they do, don't get me wrong. I can see the benefits of it, but for this, it's about the differential, and that's the key piece. It's not just I won by 1 point and I do that 5 games in a row and all of a sudden I won the tournament. You need to be winning by a significant margin if you want to get there. And it changes the play style a bit. I think it makes it a little bit more aggressive on the tabletop, because you can't just sit back and then turn 5, go, right, I've won by 1 point. Yes, I'm done. You still can do that in some games, don't get me wrong, especially if it's a bad matchup. But this, it encourages probably a bit more aggressive, and you have to think about what your opponent's score is going to be. And you're almost like trying to calculate what their secondaries are and how do I stop their secondaries and do stuff, because you want that differential as big as possible. So that's why I prefer it. But as I say, like I've been doing WTC scoring for 10 years now, so it's just the way my brain works as well, which helps me. So
like the differential can lead to some really cool interactions, right? Like, oh, I'm against Space Marines, they're taking shock tactics. Well, okay, I'm gonna like walk off of this objective, like all of the objectives. I'm not gonna get primary, they're not gonna get their secondary, and I'm gonna go kill someone or something like that, right? You can do a bunch of weird stuff where like you care about the difference more than the actual like increasing your points or whatever.
Yeah, but I think it's the denial game. I think it really brings that into play a lot more than just a straight win-loss draw. Having to constantly counteract push your opponent's score down as low as possible while pushing yours further away. So I think it makes the game a bit more interactive. Yeah.
It's good practice. It's good practice for the guys going to WTC as well. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you guys also play like WTC tables and stuff like that? And like, do you sort of do the various tables throughout, or you sort of like for each round where you generally do like one table, then readjust them, or how would you sort of guys do it with the terrain and tables? Because obviously, for people who are unaware, so there's in WTC there's like 8 tables, and like, traditionally it was like a light, a medium, a heavy, but they've all sort of been a bit adjusted. So some would have some forests, some would have crates and containers, and crates and containers are the same thing, but the industrial vents and the containers in different angles and stuff like that. So each table is a bit differently, although a fixed layout. So how did you guys vary up the tables?
Well, it depends on the event. For us, certainly this year, we tried to push towards strictly WTC as possible. So we have been investing in more of the actual Wayland-Yutani stuff. And it was merged. So in terms of the actual table on the weekend, we opted for table 6. So we picked one layout from the WTC pack. 6 is traditionally regarded as the singles table. You've got 4 big ruins obscuring, 4 small ruins obscuring. You have 3 vents, I believe, and then 4 forests. So it's the same on every table. And we basically switched the layout of the table 6. So table 6 has several layouts depending on the mission. So we basically picked the missions specifically for day 1, so we didn't have to move the tables between games. And then on the Saturday evening / Sunday morning, we reset the table for that second layout. Just logistically, I think it's an absolute nightmare to change tables about between games. Wouldn't be manageable. So that was it. We were really driven by logistics, I think, in terms of table setup. And it keeps it fair with the board.
Is like the table, because so for reference, the 8 tables, right? There's table 1 through 8. They've all got, and there'll be a table 8 layout for like different. There's like 4 or something different layouts for like the different mission types or whatever like that. Yeah. Do you guys know will table 6 always have the same number of ruins and stuff like that, and so on and so forth, arranged differently? Have you guys checked?
Yes, it's identical. Yeah, the table 6 definitely has. It's all identical terrain pieces. It's just reconfigured based on the deployment.
Because that's something I've not like looked into. It's just I'm like, oh, we're playing on this map, and I load through my TTS like add and load. That's the right number. Click that button. Good job, me.
You did it. And you talked about that this is the capstone event for the Northern Ireland rankings, and I understand for heading into WTC, so you've had this ranking system for a while, and it's pretty common across a lot of countries. So can you explain sort of how the Northern Ireland rankings work, and then sort of how it influences your WTC team?
Yeah, I feel that one because I was involved in the rankings for quite a while doing them. Basically there's like a cap on the points. So a 1-day tournament is worth 60 points, 2-day tournament's worth 100 points. And then you're placing effectively on the day or across the weekend, just determines how many points you got. So, for example, in a 2-day tournament, worth 100 points. If you finish first, you get 100 points. If you finish second, you would get 98. Because you just take the number of points and divide it by the number of players, and that's your differential then the whole way down through. And then your best 4 scores across the year determine your place in the rankings, basically. So it does artificially favor guys who can get to more 2-day tournaments. Don't get me wrong, because you can just earn more points. It used to be we used to go over to Scotland and occasionally like Element Games and things like that for tournaments. Tended to be the guys who went to those tournaments tended to top the rankings, just because you would be going to like a 200-person tournament in the mainland, and even if you finished in like the top 20, you're still getting a huge amount of points compared to everyone else.
Yeah, because like it's just the way I've done it. Like the step down per points, right, or whatever. So you can go like 4 and 2 at a 2-day thing with 200 people place. Yeah, and you're like, it's like playing podiuming at a 30-person 2-day, right?
Yeah, pretty much. It was. I suppose we designed it to encourage people to try and get to more 2-day tournaments and to try and get to bigger tournaments. And that's part of us trying to like build and develop the knowledge and the skills within the community. That it does somewhat benefit people who do that, but that's just the nature of it. So we have the ranking system. Everyone who wants to go to Northern Ireland or Team NI or declare for Team NI basically goes into that across the year, and then the team is picked. Generally, it's the top 6. Plus the captain and the vice captain, and then if the captain and the vice captain end up in the top 6, then they get wild card picks, and it's entirely down. It's just the captain and vice captain that year then get to use their wild cards. So most years, to be fair, the captain tends to be in around the top 6, so we tend to have like a wild card or 2 every year, and then inevitably within the top 6, guys are like, well, sorry, I can't go this year because I've got a family holiday or I can't afford it, and then you just kind of work your way down to the rankings until you get eight guys who can go for the most part. That tends to be how it is. And then a couple of years where, especially around sort of 6th, 7th edition, we had to sort of draft in a couple of like mercs effectively. I think we've had 3 Belgians playing for us over the years. And then there's like what we have as preferred mercs, who are guys who have declared for Team Northern Ireland. They're all live down south, declared for Team Northern Ireland, have committed to say they'll never play for another team. So they effectively, we count them as if they are Northern Irish. There's a dual nationality anyway within the island of Ireland. So from like WTC's point of view, they're going to go, if you're Irish or Northern Irish, they don't care, because you can declare for either country regardless of where you were born anyway. So we've had Jan, who's a Polish guy. He's been our merc for many years. We had Ralph and John Stowe. So they were like our 3 preferred mercs. They were always just counted as if they were Northern Irish. We never differentiated for them. So
yeah, defectors, I believe, is the term.
The Irish called them that, like, but yeah.
Oh, too good. And I understand, so obviously, Cahill, so he unfortunately could be with us tonight, but he also did an interview with, who's the guy, Polish dude, part of Stat Check. He's Typhus. Sorry. He did an interview with Typhus on Stat Check about Team on Ireland. So guys, check that out. And Cahill goes through an in-depth process on sort of the rankings and how they've adjusted and evolved that over time. So, and they'll be coming out for free view as well along the way. But the better Northern Ireland program's right here, right now. So just stay with us from now. So. So I was going to say, so obviously also as well, the UKTC have sort of popped up around that area. Have you guys sort of stepped into that area, like tried to play some UKTC terrain or UKTC events, or you'll sort of stick to your own?
Yeah, there's a couple. I think there's 2 guys I think are going to Southampton GT, if I want to say. I think that's right. I'm really sure they're going to Southampton in March. There's a couple of guys who are talking about maybe going over to Manchester, because like Manchester's literally across the sea from us, like, so it's pretty easy to get to. I mean, to be fair, it's like an hour's flight at most to get to any of the places that are holding the GTs, like, so it's not a big deal. It's just the expense, and like I have 3 very young kids, so I'm not planning on going to any this year. But the guys who are free have that,
and I'm sure that was entirely your decision, right?
Well, yeah. There's a decision involved.
Blink twice if you need help. No.
Yeah, the big one, I would love to get to more stuff, and I know a lot of the guys would, but one of the big sort of limitations is the cost of WTC. So the guys that know that they're in the running or have already qualified, they're really keeping those funds for the Home Nations run and WTC then in Belgium, because those costs just end up being phenomenal in terms of travel, kits, dice, all the sort of bells and whistles that come with it. So that kind of does impact a little bit on getting away, which is why we're trying to now really push more 2-day events here and collaborate closely with the Republic to make sure there's a shared calendar so guys can see what's available where they don't maybe have to incur just as much cost.
Yeah, fantastic. And I'm sure you'll still get people as well when you have those 2-day events, and maybe one day in the future, a 3-day event. You'll get people from the rest of the UK to attend your events. I'm sure Innes will gladly come down and visit your events and try and attempt to club some steals, but probably not.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. So we always hear you guys are like always a great bunch to play against. You have great sportsmanship and always like one of the people's favorite opponents during WTC. Is that just part of like the culture of Northern Ireland, or like, what do you think makes you guys special in maybe providing like a positive atmosphere? I don't know. Maybe Paul, you can answer.
I think it's a good core bunch of guys. Is one of the big things. Like, they're really good blokes. We had some new faces at the event just last week, and they were quite nervous on the Friday evening about sort of going into a pool of competitive players, and then the difference when they were going away on Sunday was just incredible. So I think it's that core group of guys that are involved quite heavily. I think just are a real starting point and set the tone for all of the events, even as they grow. So we haven't really got that. It is hyper competitive, but it's also very friendly. And at the end of the day, we're all grown ups. We've all got jobs, kids in Mike's case, and a lot of the guys. So a weekend away, it's a weekend to go and have beers with your mates. So you've got to enjoy it. If you're going away to tournaments and not enjoying them, what the hell's the point?
Yeah.
Whilst also playing well. Yeah, go ahead, Gus.
I was just going to fake internet points. That's the point of the tournament, right? If you're not enjoying it.
I understand also with the WTC, there's like a tradition that you guys give out shot glasses to all your opponents. Like there's some like top Team Northern Ireland embroidered shot glasses. Is that true? And like, is there some certain whiskies that maybe get attached with? Or
more important, are the shot glasses full when they're given to the opponent?
Always. Yes. Yeah. Well, we're blessed with Bushmills Distillery in Northern Ireland, which is kind of like that's one of the oldest distilleries in the world, and yeah, I think we've approached them about sponsorship in years past because we're normally going and like half our luggage is just bottles of whiskey. In a normal sort of ETC, I would get through like 4 big bottles of it fairly comfortably with my opponents, and that's like some of your opponents don't want to drink, and you're like, oh, I'll have yours then. So you can keep the shot glass, that's fine, but I'll have your whiskey. So the shot glass is one thing we've done over the years. Normally we get our dice, obviously, and stuff like that, and we'll have other merch available, I'm sure, in future.
Yeah, I think we're alcoholics. I think that's the bottom line.
It's a small place. There's not much else to do. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Have babies and drink. It's like it's your 2 options.
And it makes some sense. The Aussies have got the alcoholics thing down as well. If you like following trends, and they got sports this year, right? So yeah.
Too good. Obviously, so you guys in New Jersey have a player's name, so John Stowe. So I understand he was a massive influence in the Northern Ireland community. Can you explain like why you're such a big influence? Because I know also throughout the UK and British Isles, like when he passed, like there was a massive influence, and like people talked about him very fondly through ETC and WTC. So I don't know, Mike, you want to touch on?
Yeah, that's what I go. Dick John was one of my closest friends, probably for got 10 years or so. I think I met him actually at my first ever tournament. Didn't play against him, but I met him at the first ever tournament. And he's just one of those guys that like you just feel better being around him. His energy, his positivity. He literally just loved 40k, and he loved Team NI. He loved being involved in that. You know, he was a Dubliner, hardcore Dubliner, and but you know, Team NI was everything to him. And I think that sort of he just had this infectious energy about him. Every game you played against him was very, very tough. He never had an easy game against him, even when he brought his weird janky lists, which don't work. He still gave you a good game, but you enjoyed it because his philosophy always was that your opponent should enjoy the game as much as you do. And I think that influence and the way he played definitely it influenced me very much whenever I was just coming onto the scene, starting to go into tournaments and stuff. The way he played and the way he did things was a big influence on me. I got very close to him, but you could see that. I mean, as you said, when John passed away, and was very, very sudden, just that outpouring of love for the man throughout all of like Europe. Guys, every person he played at ETC came away with a smile on their face and had enjoyed the game. And as a tribute to a wonderful man that he was. He very much was the heart and soul of Team Northern Ireland, and probably will continue to be. He did a lot of work sort of shaping our charter and shaping how we behaved and picked the team and acted as a team as well. He was very involved in all of that, and that'll likely always continue and always be there. Well, will be as long as I'm involved in the team anyway, because got to try and keep that spirit going, But yeah, so we did. Obviously, we retired our number 8 jersey, which was his jersey for many, many years. And yeah, we got his name on all of our jerseys. You can see there, just as a tribute to him, because he was, as I say, heart and soul of the team. And I'm very sorely missed by anyone who had the pleasure of playing with him, gaming with him, or drinking with him.
Gonna feature him on your shot glasses for this year then?
Probably so. Actually, he knowing him, he probably came up with the shot glasses idea.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And yeah, like I'm to speak out, like I know in Australia as well, like in Adelaide, there was a damage he went by, like massive orc player, and like he unfortunately passed away last year, and like they renamed a whole GT after him, and like it's great. The Warhammer community is amazing, and just being able to like show obviously respects to people like that who are involved in the community and like going on in their name. So it's fantastic. So and great to see you guys obviously appreciate him and like are able to keep going playing Warhammer in his name. And I know, Mike, I think last year you wouldn't have gone to WTC or couldn't have gone if it wasn't for John Stowe from the sound of things.
Yes, it's one of those sort of bittersweet stories, I suppose. I know if John had been here, he would have laughed his balls off at it. But yeah, so I wasn't originally meant to go to WTC last year. I have like a long-standing agreement with my wife that I'd go every third year, and last year would have only been 2-year gap. But obviously John passed. My wife, who absolutely loved the man because he stayed at ours a number of times when they came up for tournaments. She wanted to come to the funeral, and I said, "Yeah, of course, come on down." And she saw kind of the impact that Team Northern Ireland, I think, as a it's a bit cheesy to say, but like as a bit of a brotherhood and sort of our camaraderie and everything, she actually saw how important it was to me and to the rest of us, Team Northern Ireland and John in particular. So we were on our way back up from the funeral, and she turned around to me and says, "You can go to WTC this year. I see how important it is." So John would have absolutely loved that. So he would have laughed so hard and knowing I got to go because of that. So I poured one out for him that night anyway, as a thank you. So I got to go for him.
That's fantastic. That's good. So I guess since 9th edition, have you guys seen like a massive growth in the community? So also, Paul, you're obviously running events and stuff in 9th edition. Have you guys seen like a more and more growth from the sound of things, or is it sort of stay stagnant, or like what's been happening?
I think certainly from I can't talk from before sort of 2017, but from come sort of back on into the community, massively so. I think it's just there's continually new blood. Even the 1-day events, 2-day events, we're starting to see just more and more faces. You know, I'm looking at the attendee list or entrance list, and going, "Who's that? Never met this guy. Who is it?" So, which is just amazing. Don't get me wrong; it's absolutely amazing to see that. And we all make a point, I think, of sort of introducing ourselves to those new names and new faces. So straight away, they never feel like they're on the sideline. Because I think the first 40K tournament I went to, way back just after I got back into things, it was in an old venue, Tabletop Tavern, which is now unfortunately closed. And if it wouldn't been for the sort of guys being so welcoming, it probably could have maybe tainted my sort of involvement again with the competitive end of things. But it was the guys on the day just actually making a point of making me feel welcome. So yeah, I think massively so in the last 6 years. Just the growth in the player base is incredible, even from the casual side of things, to the point where the local club is running sort of casual evenings through the week for the guys that maybe don't want to just be continually playing WTC and sort of quite competitive games. So yeah, there's still some guys I don't even know now within that community that I look forward to meeting, obviously in due course. But yeah, definitely think it's growing massively.
As long as people are playing 40K or Warhammer or having a hobby, that's what matters most, right? People enjoying it and having fun, getting away from their real life to an extent, have an escape. So it's fantastic. So do you guys generally play like singles events or team events in Northern Ireland? Or obviously you've got that WTC system in mind, but do you generally play a lot more singles events or try and play teams where possible?
So mainly single events. Like we have 2 team events, Paul, from right and saying. You probably have the calendar in front of you. I think we may have a couple of team events.
Yeah, there's 2 team events on the calendar for this year.
Yeah, so I think 4v4 or something. I think's the plan there for the team events. So yeah, but it's mainly singles.
How'd you go for the number like 4-on-4? Is it just like so it's ease of getting the teams or whatever, or like as opposed to 3s, 5s, try and go for higher numbers?
It's a little bit easier getting teams. Like the pairing process kind of works with 4 people a bit easier. It gets a bit convoluted if you like 3v3. I always like so whoever goes out first is the only choice that you have. Like so, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Castle said in the chat. It's venue size too. We're very restricted. Like Exploding Dice is an amazing club, but the capacity is 24. That is what it is in terms of players. So to justify the cost of a big venue, it is quite hard sometimes. But I think for the WTC guys in particular, I think the squad this year overall is about 18, including coaches and players in the mix. So I know that there's regular practices at Halsey's place. One of the players, Stephen, his office in Belfast actually has keeps some of our stock there, our tables, etc. So there's regular sort of team practice and that pairing process outside of events, both in real life and TTS. I know some of the guys are very, very keen TTS. So they are getting that exposure, although we're maybe not getting it in a live, real sort of life environment. We try to mimic what it's going to be like, I suppose, for home nations and then the run into WTC. So we're making the most with what we have, trying to work around the limitations.
Yeah, I suppose to just explain home nations there, because I know you mentioned that a couple of times, Paul. That's used to be the 6 of it, or 5 of us. Used to be 5 of us, so it was like the home nations, literally within the United Kingdom. So there's 5 of us, and then Belgium. So it used to be 6, and then the last couple of years have expanded. So I think Sweden and Denmark have joined in. So there's 8 of us last year in Scotland. So Northern Ireland used to always be the whipping boys. We would just be last every year. And then about 5 years ago, we were down south in the Republic, and we beat the Republic and beat Belgium, and that was a massive shock that we actually won rounds. And since then, I can't remember. I don't think we've come last yet, and we actually got into the winners bracket in Scotland past, which was a bit of a shock. So it was because we end up then having to face like England and Sweden and other guys who are very, very good at the game. But yeah, we got the winners bracket last year, so we're starting to develop. But that happens most years, sort of in around like April, May time. Where all the 8 nations that will descend on somewhere for a bit of like a WTC light event. So
because when you say the home nation, so it'll be Wales, England, Scotland, Northern, and Republic of Ireland. Is that right?
Yeah.
Plus Belgium, and then like you have a couple of And so Cahill in the chat saying Holland or the Netherlands this year, right? Yeah. Cool.
We can trust him, right? We can trust Cahill, maybe.
He sounds like he's on the beers already. He's been left at home alone with the kids, and he's on the beer.
That's like broken sentences just like going through the chat, but it's fine. We got there.
Oh, too good. So you guys, from my understanding, also, you guys sort of emphasis with your team Northern Ireland. You guys focus on the devil you know rather than the devil you don't. So you guys tend to have sort of some faction specialists while having some backups and armies and stuff like that. Is there generally like a skew towards various armies that you guys play? Like, is there like some randomly a bunch of Imperial Knights or Chaos Knights in the meta, or a bunch of Marine bodies? Like, or is it a pretty good mix of armies? I don't know.
With
Paul,
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to jump over Mike there, but yeah, I think across the board we've got, with guys continually adding new armies, I think, and a little bit of the meta chase sort of that is in every community. We've got, I think, a much broader pool of armies now, so we pretty much have access to everything we need. Sort of beg, borrow, steal. But I mean, the spread at the last event, I think it was roughly 40% sort of Imperial factions. 30% was Chaos, and then 20% Xenos. So the spread was amazing. I think there was 21 factions represented across the board in the 2 days. So again, that could be just the dynamic of the game with arcs just having dropped. But I think for the most part, there's nobody really limited to one faction in the community that I know of. Everybody has 2, 3, 4 more armies. So, and it tends to be quite widely spread. Well, in my view, anyway. Which
everyone's
again is
an addict, right?
Yeah, it's just more plastic. I'm looking at a mountain of plastic guard here. Again, meta chasing. Yeah. That just don't start it.
Just in time for the FAQ, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm known for nerfing factions. As soon as I touch it, it just gets swept.
Literally, Paul drunkenly bought an entire Leagues of Votan army, and the very next day they got nerfed into the ground. You've done it before. Sisters of Battle, you did it too as well. I think you finished painting your last Sisters of Battle, and then they got nerfed. And
So just channel your best Liam energy. The list he took to Adelaide, he got painted he painted it right. And not long, not well. Originally, when the first Custodes, when the book was first out, and then boom, FAQ gone. You don't get your stratagems multiple times. They're like, oh well, on the shelf that stays, and then it came out. So you might get lucky.
Absolutely, I think the guys are bribing me now to really select factions to pick up and play, just so they get nerfed.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's like, hey, Paul, we'll shout you a guard army. Just start paint that up for us. Get it nerfed. Cheers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, too good. So I understand also, was it Paul or some guy, a coach who's like an Imperial Guard diehard? So not you, Paul, but there's someone who's an Imperial Guard diehard. So you must be very happy that Guard are pretty good right now. And he was one of your coaches for last year.
It's actually funny. Anybody I've heard sort of talking in the different shows, he's called Kieran, but obviously the spelling, as people are calling him, Siren in the chat. So yeah, but Kieran, he's got an absolutely huge guard army, just everything you can imagine under the sun. I think he had 210 infantry on the table last weekend, and that's only a part of his collection. So just
Yes,
I
he did.
did
I
laugh
end up against it. His first shooting phase was like an hour and 20 minutes long, and it was just like, how many more dice do I have to roll here, Kieran? How many more saves? All right, okay. Do your mortars together.
Dude.
All 9 mortars together. It's fine.
Do you just put the clock on him and just wait?
He's actually a very, very quick player, but that first shooting phase, it was like 30 Casterkin, 12 Cadian squads, 30 Scions, mortars, and I was just like, oh Jesus, it's never going to end.
It's like, no, it will pretty quickly. You run out of models, mate.
I didn't actually. He only killed 7 Terminators, and then the remaining 3 just kind of walked through his army.
Oh,
disgusting.
I faced the dude who was like, he was wanting to paint 1,000 Imperial Guardsmen, so he took 300 of them to an event in Auckland that I went up to, and like I've got 9 chain cannons on Chaos Knights plus like, and then carnivores. It's just like, well, that was really funny. As he starts deploying in like the back corner, it's like, are you hiding that much? He's like, nah, bro, I just need that much deployment zone. And he did. It was like, it felt like a co-op game, because we were both like sitting around the dice tray trying to resolve all of the shooting. It dropped after day 1.
that would be exciting.
Yeah,
you're a horrible human. Oh,
me! I helped him, dude. It was like, all right, cool. I'm going first. Cool. All right, you've got 300 models. That's too much. You've only got 100 to deal with after turn 1. And then we were like sitting there for an hour at the dice tray, back and forth rolling. My back was sore just from one shooting phase of helping him roll this stuff. I can't imagine running the army.
Oh, so good, so good. I understand you guys had a Northern Irish 40k podcast. So when's it coming back, or when's it starting again?
Yeah, it's something. So it is again. It's that. It's the guy Stephen Holdsworth, Holsey, as he goes by. He's got the sort of setup for the podcast stuff, and he works in software, so he's really good with that sort of stuff. It's just been real life, because of the nature of his work, where it's very heavily project based. He could have times in the year where he's loads of time, and then other times he's just completely unavailable, other than for sort of team practice and focusing on WTC. So we have talked about it. We really want to get up and running again. Just purely because it lets us guys link up outside of games, talk some shit about tiny men, and really keep people up to date about what's going on with us. I think the guys made a bit of an impression last year in terms of, as Mike said, it's not just a case of Northern Ireland's going to be bottom of the pack anymore, and the whole dynamic, I think, has changed, and it's focused towards actually doing well and progressing year on year, placing better. So, yeah, it's good to be part of the community.
All right, lads, we can do more than get our opponents drunk and win best sports. We can do okay. Let's go.
And maybe one day you two can become a playtester, so you get ahead advanced knowledge of the editions, right? It's all part of the competitive advantage, right?
That's all right. Cal will just do as usual. He's the only man I've ever met who just phones you. Like, you're sitting at work and like your Facebook chat's going, and then you have a call from Cal, and you're like, he's the only person. It's my wife and Cal are the only people that ever call me.
Like,
he just does. He just pick up
like actually your phone number,
an actual phone call. like a Philistine. He does, like he'll pick up the phone to like every captain in ETC and be like, tell me what's good, tell me what I need to do. And because we're Northern Ireland and everyone kind of knows, like, we're not pushing to win the thing, like, they will actually help us, which has been very useful the last few years. So,
does he own a landline still as well?
Probably.
Just imagine like sitting there with his rotary phone being like,
So, but you guys are improving. Obviously, as you said, you won't improve it, and you're at the bottom of the pack, and you're sort of like the whipping boy for a while. But you guys have improved over time, and like, what do you think will be required for you guys to take the next step to deal with, I guess, the top dogs or beat? So I know Cahill talked about how you guys just lost to Scotland and you just lost to Iceland. Apologies. This WTC, whereas previously you got really smacked pretty badly. So what do you guys think will be needed to take that next step towards beating those teams? Is it just time? Is it practice? Is it the player skill? What is it, you think?
Is it higher percentage whiskey to give your opponents earlier?
You ain't getting much higher percent than the stuff we bring, to be fair. But I think a lot of it comes down to just player skill I don't believe is our issue, and never really has been our issue. We have always have had really good players. I think it's more knowledge our guys will still get caught out by stuff, like not knowing that someone can do a certain stratagem or not knowing how to play. Whereas, I mean, you mentioned Innes earlier. Innes plays 40k religiously. He knows everything about your army, and that's
as of recently, it's literally his full-time job, right?
Yeah, it is,
Yeah.
and that gives him the benefit of he knows what you can do, and then he can play around that. Whereas, I mean, we're doing pairings sometimes at WTC, and the guys are like looking up the opponent's army list, and we're trying to do a matrix for pairings, and the guys are like, so what does this do? What does that do? And what does that do? And we have a small community, so there are certain armies that we just don't play, we don't see here, and we're having to kind of theory craft it and live on Wikipedia, etc. So I think that does hold us back a little bit, in that players are going in with a game plan, not realizing their opponent can do X, Y, and Z, or not realizing the impact of that. Which, and as you say, like it literally was a couple of points in both Iceland and Scotland games, and some guys are coming up afterwards going, yeah, I didn't realize they could do that, or I didn't know about this. I think that's probably the next step we need to take, is that knowledge. I think we have the skill, we have access to all the armies, as Paul said, so it's just knowing what your opponent's going to do is kind of the next step for us. So.
Yeah, because there's so many things in the game, right? Like the other day I was surprised. It was like, cool, I'll tag this Dreadnought, will be good. There's a 1 CP fallback shoot and charge for like a teleporter unit. Like, there's something that's just like, this is probably all right. Oh, okay, well, meh. Sucks to start.
That's why playing against World Eaters is going to be easy, because World Eaters with their 1 page of stratagems, and they're going to run up and twat you in the face.
8 stratagems. They got that right. There's like a bunch of movement 9, 7 attacks at strength 7 dudes, but like they've got 8 stratagems, so it's okay.
Perfect.
That's what truly matters. As long as the stratagems have another 8 in it.
Yeah.
So Tess, do you have any other questions?
Me? No, I don't contribute helpful questions. I just like interject, interrupt, form tangents, and try to be funny occasionally.
No, all good. So you guys talked about TTS before. So you guys are sort of trying to do some scrims with that. Is it like, obviously I understand you had like a scrim against Canada and maybe a scrim against Scotland, or you've sort of tried to do that sort of thing? Like, what are those scrims looking like? Are they like 8v8s? Are they 6v6s? Or
yeah, no, they're fully 8v8s, so they are. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. My PC has only recently been purchased and sitting beside me, so I haven't taken part in any of them. I just tend to watch. But yeah, I think we have Austria lined up next. Off the top of my head. There you go. I can't remember. There's like our Discord. There's like loads of them that we've played. I think we've played Poland. We've played Scotland, as you said, Wales. And then we have obviously the in real life ones against the Republic. That's kind of the chart. I can't remember if there's any other ones, but yeah. So the guys are pretty intense on TTS. Just not something I've taken part in just yet. So.
Yeah,
good. It's good for exposure. I try to go on and watch some of the games because I'm coaching. So I think it's good exposure to the sort of wider meta. So we're getting to see what sort of teams are thinking, what lines they're thinking along to. So again, it helps, as Mike touched on, trying to really start to learn what those lists can do if we don't already, and be able to respond to that. So that everybody on the team, if they're paired into that, has a good working idea of what the gotchas are, what can catch them out, what the sort of plays into it are. So it's just, again, it's a chance to get exposure that we don't otherwise get, because we are quite sort of isolated, being on an island at the ass end of Europe. So yeah, it's great for that. I'd like to get more involved in it and actually use it and learn to use it properly. But it's great to actually just sit and watch games that the guys are playing. So it's really useful for that.
Yeah, because like being in small communities, it can be weird, like the things you do and don't learn and know and stuff like that, right? And things you pick up on, like like GSC, right? For that, like the Aussies took, that no one said, it was just like, what the hell is this? And like you can win a lot of games just by like, what vaguely the other person's army does, and people are like, what the hell do these do? Good luck. Right? And like, because also I didn't sort of realize, but the other day watching a TTS game, right? I've got a buddy local to me who's got Ynnari, right? So I've played a few games with Incarn, and like the teleport jank that can do, and familiar with it. And so I was just watching this game as like, so Incarn went in, tried to bop Trajan. Trajan was the boss and lived, right? And then there's a fight somewhere else, and then the guy, he had to all fight first, and it's like, and I'm just screaming internally, like, you got to swing with Trajan. You got to swing with Trajan. Otherwise, he's going to peace out and, like, be over there. And he got, like, midway through rolling with a unit, and then the in-can player was like, "Oh yeah, that's what my rule does," and teleports away. It's just yeah, you like. So I get the thing with your community, right? It can be really tough. Yeah, it's a real thing with like where 40K's got to with like a bunch of armies. Probably also the fact that a bunch of them are viable as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah,
I took one of the least viable armies last weekend as it is in Chaos Space Marines and managed to get a win. Like, so yeah, they've been hurt so badly. Unfortunately, I played NIDS for like 3 years before that, so I'm no stranger to a nerf at this stage.
Don't let Ryan from our team hear that. He's been like the secret top scoring thing on the like 5N TTS things we've been doing, and he's just been like crushing it with like slightly random world eaters and like Chaos Space Marine word bearers is one of them and stuff.
I was word bearers, to be fair. Yes, I think they're a real sleeper hit in the codex, to be honest. But sometimes it's hard to look past Emperor's Children because they're just so good. It's just yeah,
and so ostentatious. You just like literally they're eye catching.
Yeah, I have 5 Blastmaster Marines sitting right in front of me here at the minute. So I may be pivoting to Emperor's Children soon. So.
Giving into Slaanesh's will, right?
Yeah, too. That's where the fun is.
Yeah.
So you touched on that. Is there a massive like hobby or painting element to Northern Ireland events? Like, is there like a big strong hobby contingent? Like people like paint the very nice models, or is it all like just get the paint ready, battle ready, and just start slamming events?
I think I've seen it. I think I commented on this last weekend when I was doing where we were shortlisting the best painted army. I think the hobby standard from I was first involved to now is just the difference is colossal. Guys seem to be taking a lot more pride in their armies, I think. So although we are pushing to get armies ready for events, etc., I still think there's a lot of pride goes into guys' armies across the board. And I think what's influenced that is, I think previously, looking back when I was first coming to 40K events, there didn't really used to be a painting requirement for the one-dayers, etc. But Pete, who's the guy that one of the guys that runs Exploding Dice, the club, outside of events that are just after a new chapter approved update, where there's a bit of sort of laxing on the painted rules, it's fully repainted requirement. So I think that changed the dynamic a lot, making it compulsory. Like, you're going to lose your 10 points if you don't have a painted army, and paint it to a proper battle ready standard, as opposed to just a one color slapped on over the top of something.
Yeah.
So I think that's driven it. I think that's been an influencing factor. And I definitely think there is a lot more pride in people's armies. Some of the stuff there last week, if you get a chance to look at the pictures on Facebook, some of the armies look absolutely phenomenal. Really, really nice stuff.
Yeah. There's a chance Sam was like amazing and organized as usual, and like has them in a thing to pull up. Am I being? They might be appearing. But yeah.
No, so unfortunately there won't be. But where's the link for Bastion Games and like the events where you could try and see some of the Northern Irish things and maybe get more in touch with Team Northern Ireland if one was wanting to do so?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can post it in the chat here. I think Cathal's on. He can maybe copy and paste the Facebook link. So it's just Bastion Games Wargaming on Facebook. We have a. There we go. Perfect. Thanks, guys.
Oh, it's got the official at the end. That's when you know it's good.
That's the blue tick right there.
Take it till you make it. And then I think we have a Discord server, which guys, what they're interested in involved with, just let us know. We can get those details shared. But I'm going to try and be much more active again. That now COVID is gone. I think we all got quite lazy over COVID. I'm going to be trying and be a lot more active in terms of linking. Sort of links to local events, sort of cross-border events, and try and get more involved, both locally and slightly wider abroad.
Like, it's hard enough running events, let alone being like, "Hey, I'm running an event. Come, like, show up, please!" Like, and outreach and all that stuff.
Well, any of the events, obviously recent news as we're recording this, the Warhammer community announced the invitational events, so the people who can go attend the Warhammer Championships in Atlanta. Were any of your events lucky enough to get an invite?
Broadsword Gaming actually has, Mike. I just was having a look yesterday. So again, those guys are in the Republic. They have a 2-dayer in this month, end of this month, I think, and they have one of the WTC, or not WTC, one of the Warhammer, World Championship qualifying spots, I think it's called.
The GW like golden ticket event type thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, certainly if we can grow our numbers here, it'd be something we'd be probably interested in. It'd be a good to be involved in, if nothing else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's great to see like the list of like various countries who play 40k and just involved, and I'm sure it'll grow and grow and grow. It's like a great initiative, and hopefully more and more people get involved. So happy days. Before we close things off, do you guys have anything to like shout out or plug along the way out? Maybe starting with yourself, Mike. Any final plugs, shout outs, or anything?
No, we'll probably just if anyone comes across this or finds this and you're interested in being involved in Team Northern Ireland, just like find any of us on Facebook, or Cahill especially, or myself and Paul, drop us a wee message. We'd get you in. We have a Team NI Facebook chat. We have a Discord, as Paul's mentioned. We'd get you involved in that. And that's, to be fair, I think that's how most of the guys are kind of getting involved. Like Halsey, who's I think he's a vice captain this year. He literally just found me on the Art of War Discord at one point, and I happened to mention I was from Northern Ireland. They hit me up, and then all of a sudden, that gets him involved. So, yeah, by all means, like shout us up if you want to be involved in Team Northern Ireland. Do it and try and get along to tournaments, and meet guys face to face. And then like personally, I've started. My wife nagged me for long enough to get onto Instagram and start like charting stuff on Instagram. So, I started that as of last night. I am officially I've sold my soul to that. Like so, and I've been hesitant otherwise. So I'm on it.
And no requirement to actually be in Northern or like the Republic of Ireland. It would seem, right? If you're just a dedicated merc, you take all sorts.
Yep. Yeah. Well, in previous years we had to make a team. We probably don't have to do that as much now. But listen, get involved. We're happy literally just to talk shit on 40k all day, every day. No problem at all. Like, so.
I think if everybody goes far enough back in their family tree, there's usually an Irishman turns up somewhere in the world at some stage in history. So you can always claim Irish blood.
We do like babies.
If you have red hair, you're probably Irish, right? If you're a ranger, like even if you have the term ranger to go like a redhead, you're Irish. Too good. Paul, do you have any final plugs or shout outs?
Yeah, no, just obviously big thanks to yourselves guys for having us on. It's been great. And a big shout out to all the guys that made the effort last week in the community base, and also to the local clubs for all their support, especially from the terrain aspect. And Pete is obviously instrumental in the community, so big shout out to him for he was up on Friday night helping me with terrain, helped organize half of the terrain for the event, etc. So just big shout out to him and the club.
Yeah, cheers. No, thanks for coming on. Happy to have you. It'll, it came about, like, speaking of the getting in touch online, came about just from chat and shit with Cahill on another Discord. Hey, it's good.
Yeah, that's what he does.
He does that.
And in the Discord comments as he's downing pints. Not the YouTube anyway. Sam, close this out, mate.
Probably a touch, just a closing one if I can, guys. He'll not appreciate this, but talking of Cahill on pints, he did list submission. It was coming up the deadline for list submission, and he had emailed me with 2 lists. So he had sent in an Eldari list and a Sisters list. He said, Paul, I'm submitting both these. I'm just waiting to see if I can get the Defenders models for the Eldar list. So I went, yeah, that's fine, dude. You've got them in time. So later that night, I got a text, I think it was like 10:30 in the evening, said, have the Defenders, Sisters it is. And it was kind of spelt a bit funny. So I didn't know how to interpret that. So I just went with Sisters it is. He must be taking Sisters. Turns out he was just drunk and had intended to take Eldar. Has no recollection of the message. So he was stuck with Sisters for 5 games that he didn't want to play with.
I can see that a little bit from the somewhat chaotic YouTube comment chains here. Oh dear, man! Now I'm really looking forward to watching that Into the Matrix video.
Oh, that's too good. Nothing bad's ever happened with the drug decision making, right? Or all good text being sent or anything? Nah, not once. It's too good. Too good. On that note, we have to wrap things up. Thank you again for you guys joining. Really, really appreciate it. And hope you guys see you on the TTS or WTC one year.